I'm Eric Guthey from the Copenhagen Business School, and this is another Accelerator on Demand video. I'm sitting with two members of the restaurant and hospitality community, and as we've mentioned already, CBS is forging a set of partnerships and collaborations with that community and that industry to figure out ways to respond to the COVID-19 crisis. Let me ask you guys both to introduce yourselves.
Yes.
Camilla?
My name is Kamilla Seidler. I'm a cook. I have part of Restaurant Alouette in Christian, and we are hopefully soon gonna start here at BaneGaarden together with Søren, a more social aspect of our business. So we're very excited about that.
Cool. Søren?
I'm Søren, and I'm very happy that you are entering this place with us. I'm Søren, I'm a cook as well. Over the last 22 years I worked with co-founding Årstiderne, a meal box organic solution that is pretty big, but also delivers a lot of especially plants to restaurants to help them in a greener, more sustainable way.
Awesome. So we've actually not even met before, which is funny, but Camille and I have been working together in the context of a group that we call Bowline, which is a group of chefs, scholars, friends who came together in the middle of the COVID crisis, literally started meeting on Zoom to try and figure out what was happening and how we could help. And what we want to talk about in this video is ways that the restaurant industry in Copenhagen is adapting and changing now in a manner that will create capabilities towards the future. So Camilla, you started the crisis with one restaurant and you're pretty soon going to have 3?
Yes, it's very strange.
That's pretty weird. Tell us about that.
So the idea with expanding Lola to have a little brother called Louis was already in the cards, and then about 2 weeks before opening, COVID hit, and then we had to shut everything down, obviously. We then decided when we could reopen that we would do it as a Lola pop-up in the same location, and then give it 3 months to see if there was a market, because nobody had any idea. We've been super lucky that we've been busy and well received. So hopefully the plan will continue and we will do a proper different restaurant and not a pop-up.
So, and Søren, tell us a little bit more about this place, this space, but also, I mean, obviously it was in the works before the crisis hit.
Yeah.
But how has that changed?
We are in the phase of building the place, so actually we could just continue.
Okay.
Of course, got a little scared. Our commercial meal box solution, it exploded, lifted 50%.
Oh, really?
Revenue, it's crazy.
So you're one of those guys.
Yeah,
Yes.
but our wholesale business, it eradicated totally.
Okay. Okay.
So all these employees, they entered the private business. And we also have 30 employees working with the control kitchens, etc. They suddenly haven't anything to do. So it was like both ways for us. But this place we actually just continued building, and we are very soon ready to open.
But so both of you work in the space of responsibility and sustainability. How has the COVID crisis actually challenged restaurants' abilities to stick to their principles in that regard? Do you think it's going to be more difficult moving forward?
I think it could go in both directions. And I'm actually very concerned that all the green projects could shut down because of
Expensive.
A recession. But I also think that people have had time to get the gut feeling into the brain and understand that it's simply that there's not a yes or no. We simply need to make huge changes very fast. We've worked with the climate calculations on a quarterly level since 2005 in our company, so we are very concerned about what is happening. We've seen it for 20 years. Like, it's simply something is needed to be done now. That's actually what we will show from this site, BaneGaarden. Yeah.
And what's the philosophy behind the site? How's it?
The philosophy is to take in all the green chapters. For instance, there will be a huge compost session here with a mega machine and smaller machines, and showcases where people, they understand, wow, I need to take care of my organic material and make compost out of it and circulate it back to the countryside. I need to understand clever water, bees, insects, fermentation, the plant world, like 80-20, 80% plants, 20% animal energy, that it should be at least organic, or even biodynamic or permaculture, that you focus on local. Like in the COVID-19, nobody understood that if you closed the border for real, we have no food here. In March, there's no food. You can have pig and you can have milk, but there's no food for pigs here. You grow it in jungles from South Africa that is harvested.
Okay.
So people, they don't understand it. They go, oh, there's food, just a little worse.
Yeah.
We would be very hungry.
Wow. So
no sheep bank here.
Yeah.
No sheep production.
Camilla, we joke that your business is growing in the midst of the crisis, but what was the biggest challenge you faced when the shutdown started?
That we had just opened the restaurant.
Yeah, that's right, you had just opened Lola in November, right?
Yeah, we opened in November and then shutting it down again. So of course, not a lot of money in the bank since all beginnings are expensive. But also, like we had I think we had a 15-minute session of keeping staff, not keeping staff. Everybody looked at each other like, we have to keep staff.
Okay.
So that was like from the beginning, because if we then reopen without a staff, we have nothing. So it was also about understanding that this is not a business with just numbers. It's also about creating jobs, and it's also about doing what you preach. If we tell everybody that we need to behave and be good to each other and be good to nature and be good and be good and be good, and then as soon as we face 5 minutes of trouble, we push the button, fire everybody, and save ourselves, and so we just decided that wasn't an option.
And so you and I were involved in this effort with the Bowline Group and with CBS students to run the survey to find out what people were thinking and feeling before the restaurants opened again. Yeah. And one of the things you said to me was that we learned a lot from that survey, but a lot of the information we gathered was superseded by subsequent events. Because people came back to your restaurant in droves right away, right?
Yeah. I mean, people, I think it's very saying that this is Danish people that react this way, and I think the survey, when we see results from other countries, it's going to be completely different. Yeah. If you've been closed up in your own house for 14 weeks in Spain, you're probably going to have a better time understanding why you're wearing a mask and so on. So it's also a very national vibe, I think. One of the positive things regarding organic and everything was that we could see the organic sale rising during COVID for people buying at supermarkets and stuff, which means that probably people are starting to get nervous. They're like, oh, okay, I'll buy organic because it's probably better for my health.
Why? That's interesting.
I think it's, then you kind of pay your respects when it's a little bit too late.
That's interesting. Okay.
And I think it's the same we can see with employees, with everything else. Now people are like calling their staff. I didn't mean to fire you. Can you please? We're opening on Monday. Could you come back? So it's. I think it's for us at least giving us a super happy and secure team.
Right.
We had to work a lot. We all did at the beginning. We're opening slow, low staffed, and then after 3 days, we're like all man aboard, come back full time, full shift, go. But we don't know if it's a bubble. We're hitting summer holidays, and in a week we might be back to.
Did anybody tell you were crazy to open up 2 new businesses in the middle of this?
We did ourselves.
You did.
But it's also, I think, generating liquidity right now is completely necessary for our business. As long as we can see people coming in and drinks being poured and food going out, then we're sure we can pay our bills and we can pay our salaries. But if we shut down and we don't know and we keep people waiting, then I think we're in more trouble.
I mean, not everybody is as lucky as you guys in the industry.
Nope.
I mean, what do you think the industry is going to look like in a year? I mean, businesses will close, right?
I think when September, October hits and we have to start repaying tax and everything else, we had a very short-term loan on, then we're going to see the reality of if people are able to, if they had made enough liquidity in these months to actually pay back.
I mean, and our conversations have been about the fact that that's when it's going to be even more important for people to collaborate with each other and keep talking and figure things out.
Exactly. And one of the things I like about this project here, and one of the things that we discussed as well, was this space can do so many things. So we can maybe one day you'll order our flatbread for a catering event here, and you'll get the oysters from somebody else, and you get the vegetables from the garden. And so it's a collab thing, like we also talked about with Matt and Christian and Nick. It's should we do more collab events so we're not just.
There's a word here at BaneGaarden that I think says a lot. It's like cross-pollinating.
Yeah.
Like we can teach each other and we can help each other and
that's very cool.
Drag a lot of good things up by working together.
Yeah.
It will be a place with, I think, 200, 300 employees.
What is the opening date actually?
It should be this Friday, but we postponed it 1 week because of the municipality.
Wow.
But we haven't told anybody yet that we are here. Only a little secret Insta account.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's funny to see what happens. I'm a little scared that you could say luckily that there's no tourists, so it would be mostly the local company. That's a good start, I think. But we would like to, it's some kind of a slow move, and at the same time, Lola and the other, of course, need to have revenue.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're gonna balance that dance. But it's kind of. I've never been in a situation like this where it's like all the good things in planet comes to us here and wants to collaborate.
That's
like there's, for instance, I said clever water, structured water, vital water. The most hardcore quantum physics people and professors from DTU and are coming in. Hey, I heard you're talking about clever water. I want to join that band. Okay, there's a guy in Silkeborg. He used to work with black holes, how to harvest energy. He's building a water machine for me, 50,000 kroner, he's just giving it away. I don't know why I can just feel I need to do this. Like a thing like that, barrel out there that makes structured water.
Yeah.
And in a level where with fluorine crystals, where it stays structured forever. You know, water coming out of the tube, it's dead and stupid.
I mean, it bears out, what you're saying bears out, I think, that we've been discussing in the group we call Bowline, which is that by having these connections with other people, that's how resilience happens, because we're literally learning new things from each other that we didn't know and figuring things out together. So.
Yeah, and learning from each other, like, oh, how are you doing that? And this business has been known for keeping secrets. Like the classic French chef where he wouldn't give his recipe to the student, it was only him doing the sauce. And it's so outdated, and it's time that we also wake up and realize a little bit, you can have my recipe, it doesn't matter, because I already did it. Have it, do whatever you want with it. Put some sumac on it and call it yours. It doesn't matter, as long as we can.
A lot of people, they do a lot of classes in whatever the discipline is. Here's no classes. You just walk in from the street, buy a very huge filter crowd, and walk to Lonnie or Frederik or Stella, as it's called. That's the first 3 fermentation nerds. You just walk to them and say, hey, I heard I could ferment this here, or bergamots, or Buddha's hand, or pepper mash, or whatever then you ferment it here and walk home and say, wow, I thought I should buy something at a farmer's market. I ended coming home with kombucha and kefir and kraut and pepper mash and kimchi. And so that's in a lot of different disciplines. You just walk in and learn a lot.
Camilla and Christian, we have been talking together since the beginnings of the COVID-19 crisis, and you guys have had some conversations that I have benefited from about the plight of employees in the restaurant industry and how you guys both have been helping them out in the short term, but thinking about the way things should be organized or treated differently in the long term. So can you tell us a little bit about that conversation?
Yes.
Okay. Good, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
It obviously comes from, we've been in the industry for a long time now and then experienced all sides of the industry, both the very positive sides, but also negative sides. And I think, as we discussed earlier, that, this crisis added so much pressure on the industry that we should adapt. So maybe too much pressure, but there's definitely a basis for making adaptation and a lasting change of the industry into something more sustainable, not only on the human base, but also financially. But the basis of the finance is basically human. So we need to take the human aspect much more serious. And also learn from our own mistakes. I think we all have, also especially being an owner now, is we all have a black spots in the way of running a business, and also especially in terms of staffing. So also makes this period here to revise yourself, revise what you want to do different, and actually saying it out loud, because when you say it out loud, you're also committed to actually do something about it. Otherwise, and I think the Bowline has been a very good thing here, because we actually say something out loud and know how to do it.
Yeah, but it's also it's an interesting time, because we've been struggling for the employers' right, but also there's been a lot of I think the business has been misunderstood for many years, and for some reason people tend to think that all restaurateurs are stuffing our pockets with huge bills and driving around in expensive cars we bought for black money, and it's I don't even have air in my tires for my bike. So it's also a time where we can afford transparency. We can say, like, these are the facts. It's not that I don't want to give you more salary, but I would rather have that you work the hours that you're supposed to work, and then I'll pay you according to that, instead of paying you 2,000 more and having you work 20 hours more, because then the equation is not right either. It's also a time where, unfortunately, we could push employees, because there's a lot of people being laid off right now, and we're kind of back to scratch of being able to push our employees more and more and more, which is unfortunate, and that's also why now is the time to do the right thing.
We talked about that in the relationship. I mean, it's just a basic economic theory. If there's a larger pool of unemployed persons in the industry, you can imagine pay going down and hours going up.
Yeah, exactly.
Employers could demand it.
Yeah, but it's also a time where, as an employee, we've seen. You can see you get chefs' curriculums in, and then you can see they've jumped from place to place to place to place. And now I learned all this here, and it's more about getting it on your CV than it's actually dedicating yourself to a space and believing in a philosophy and working with people that you trust and confide. So it's also a time as an employee to give back and to buy into a place that you actually trust and love to come to work at, and so it's kind of both ways now.
I mean, neither of you use stagiaires in your business, right? But for people that don't know, let's explain what stagiaires are. What's fascinating is that can even work.
I don't even know. Okay. Maybe you can finish your sentence.
Yeah. I mean, stagiaires have gone away.
Yeah.
What kind of effect is that going to have? I mean, maybe that's a good thing for the industry in terms of what kind of effect is that going to have in the industry?
Well, a lot of places are going to have to run their business on the same terms as many other places, pretty much. I'm very biased because I had the opportunity to be a stagiaire, but paid by the Danish government as a student. So I brought my SU, government support. I was able to bring that to Spain and stagiaire in my first year of culinary school in Spain. Which for me completely changed my vision about gastronomy. I had no idea what it meant to be a cook, and I didn't know what it meant to cook at that level. And if I hadn't gone as a volunteer, I would never have had the opportunity to work in that place.
Right.
So, and I was also there at a time where I did all stations. I got around the full restaurants. I was on the fish station, I was on the meat station, I did all the prep. I sent out food that was actually eaten by people, not just standing in a corner picking herbs for formal. So I got a lot out of my stash. So I don't want to be the one saying that it shouldn't exist. But if you can't look yourself in the eye and say that after 3 months of people donating their free time, they haven't learned anything but picking herbs or whatever you can put them through, then it's an issue.
It talks into also looking at that model, because I think I'm also divided with it, because it also has a huge opportunity to exchange on a global level of people traveling around. I think the Nordic food movement, hadn't spread that much. There hadn't been just shares traveling back home and changing the industry in their place. But it also talks to how do we educate staff. It talks into the whole kind of what we discussed a lot about, whether it's a charter, whether it's better contracts, better organization. It talks into a fundamental need for change in the way we operate in our businesses. It's creating a more mature business. It's creating actually a work life, whereas you have a tendency, also because we have so many unskilled labor in the industry, that is it's a place where you just pass through, which is for some reason okay because we get some of them staying in, but most of them are on their career to the real job. That means they're never present. They're having a fundamental modernist crisis about being here. They're always on their way, hence the CV checking out and all that. They're never able to be present, and that also means it's very difficult as an employer to actually get the benefit out of it. I've honestly had people say, no, I'm just here to help. I said, no doubt, I'm not here to help, I'm here to work. Which I perfectly understand and respect, but also is so problems with our industry. And with our own workplaces, saying how do we actually create that environment that people are feeling this is a career, this is a workplace, and that talks into tackle some of those issues that the industry has had for a long time, and some of them are bloody big elephants that we need to approach, and it's probably going to be a bit of stamping and yelling, but I think we need to do that, and again, having this kind of outside pressure might just be the medicine we need to adapt.
And that's the conversations that CBS really wants to be involved with and help facilitate, because what we're planning to do is throw a series of workshops this fall where we bring people from the restaurant industry together with academics from CBS and together with other executives and leaders from other industries to pose some of these hard questions about how this industry could be run better, but also how this industry can teach things that other industries need to learn about.
But also I think there's a lot to take away from our industry. I had a conversation with our CEO Jakob, and just the business that we have, Lola, and all the under businesses and great stuff we have. My own personal experience is very strange and varied and going all over the world. And then we have our dishwasher from Pakistan who's a chemical engineer. Then we have Selma, our 16-year-old student who did her own cookbook and now is starting culinary school. Then you have a bunch of middle leaders, then you have accounting, then you have, there's so many people that needs to talk to each other from completely different terms and completely different educations and ages. And our industry has absolutely no teaching of leadership whatsoever. So you're just handed the carrot one day and then run with it. So it's also some of these, everybody's saying that our business can't be changed. All the businesses around us have changed over the years. Why can't we? So I think it's also looking at it with new eyes and people like CBS coming in and saying, but why don't you? Or maybe, and then starting that conversation on how to improve and how to get better at what we do.
We talked earlier about how do we facilitate a new generation of people coming into the industry, because I think that's not only in our industry, especially looking at ourselves as a sector, not as a kind of what you call a Narnia or something secluded from the rest of the world, but actually looking at us as a proper sector, like any other industry sector. Looking at that in a workspace, and obviously be organized in a way that still is for me archaic in the way of labor organization. But how do we actually adapt, which is the same problem that other people have, other industries, to a generation who are much more independent, who are much more I than we. And how do we actually see that? And also, for those who really feel comfortable about it, how do we get old? How do we get old in the industry? How do you be a line chef at age 50 without having 3 heart attacks and drinking problem, or vice versa for front of house people? How do we actually make them see a career in that, and actually with pensions and all the benefits that you see in our industry? So the organized labor in our industry only covers 20% of our industry. So it's 80% without any kind of goal, aim, or organization is very much down to the individual businesses. And some of them are doing the best. Some have clear ideas, and others have no bloody chance. And others are, honestly, also run by crooks, bastards.
I mean,
So,
I've
but
said this before.
that's how it is. But it's also, it comes down to that sometimes, also go for ourselves, we're self-taught in this. I have a bit of background, but otherwise most of our colleagues are self-taught, and myself, I'm self-taught in the industry as well. So there's no proper schooling in it, there's no proper way. So sometimes you put people in charge of something that had basically, sometimes blind luck and talent. But most of the time it's just, it's uphill, don't mind doing, and while doing that, it's really funny, hence startups and all that. But after a period, it's really not really good business, and you die out. If you look at a classic case of restaurant, especially in times now where most restaurants are run by chefs. If you go back 20 odd years, it was restaurateurs hiring chefs. Now we have the chef room, which is by all standards really good. But you can also see a chef running a business, and then the person runs. He can run on very low salary and work, or she can work for 250 hours a month at 10 kroner an hour max. And they can run a business model for that for a certain period. But as soon as they find out that the spouse wants to see them, or if they have kids, God forbid, in that period, then suddenly they might lose their business because they cannot do the hours anymore. So there is also a learning curve in how do you do a startup in a restaurant without killing yourself from day one.
Yeah.
How do we make long lives, sustainable lives, and making sure that the business can run also like yourself, so make yourself non-dependent. I think that's the biggest challenges.
These are cool issues because they matter to everybody, not just the people in the restaurant.
No, exactly.